Welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from a Frontier. Thank you for stopping by as always. I'm always grateful. Let's just start out with the big things happening right now. Obviously, the Brexit vote. Fear rises amid countdown to Brexit vote. VIX logs highest close since February. VVIX briefly jumps to highest since December. So this is uncertainty about price movements driving up the fear factor. Europe to Britain, please don't go. I really like the photograph. On the 13th of June, I said, if Prime Minister David Cameron can pull this rabbit out of the hat, it will be a famous political victory. It really will. And looking at the in-out, it's 77.5 to 80.5, which is the highest that I've ever seen. But having said that, market movements are belying that. People are bidding up gold, which is, you'd be doing that on the basis that they exit. I like this photograph as well of Boris and David Cameron. Boris turned out to be a fellow who was always after the main chance. Let's see how that develops. Pound burst through its 200-day moving average like a knife through butter. This was David Inglis's tweet, but then has subsequently retreated from that level. Despite final polls diverging, currency markets seem convinced the UK stays. That's what we're seeing in the price reaction. I like this quote: "The risk in the event of Brexit is so big, it's unhedgeable." I think that's the point. Home Thoughts went back to J.D. Salinger, catcher in the rye. She was terrific to hold hands with. Most girls, if you hold hands with them, their goddamn hand dies on you, or else they think they have to keep moving their hand all the time, as if they were afraid they'd bore you or something. Jane was different. We'd get into a goddamn movie or something, and right away we'd start holding hands, and we wouldn't quit till the movie was over. And without changing the position or making a big deal out of it, you never even worried with Jane whether your hand was sweaty or not. All you knew was you were happy. You really were. At night, when Hannah still does crawl into our bed, her older sisters tell her off, but I quite like it. And then I like holding her hand as she sleeps. Put up a photograph of her horse riding at Mount Kenya. She reminds me of my mother, and I love going to Mount Kenya because I went there with my mother when I was very young, and I miss her. And she was my beloved. And on that note, let me go back to Kabir, who captured my emotions towards Mum. Between the poles of the conscious and the unconscious, there has the mind made a swing. Thereon hang all beings and all worlds, and that swing never ceases its sway. Millions of beings are there, the sun and the moon and their courses are there. Millions of ages pass and the swing goes on, all swing, the sky and the earth and the air and the water. Before I left, I wanted one shot, visually strong, elemental and raw. Finally, this is David Yarrow, who's a fantastic photographer. Going back to J.D. Salinger, it was that kind of crazy afternoon, terrifically cold, and no sun out or anything. And you felt like you were disappearing every time you crossed a road. One mustn't be so rigid or egotistical to think that every comma is sacrosanct. Edward Albee. I wonder what that is. The US picked the wrong target in playing this trick on China. This is the People's Daily. China's top newspaper strongly criticized the United States on Wednesday after it deployed 2 aircraft carriers on a training mission in East Asia, where military tensions have risen amid China's growing assertiveness. US carriers John C. Stennis and Ronald Reagan began joint operations in seas east of the Philippines at the weekend in a show of strength ahead of an international court ruling expected soon on China's expansive territorial claims in the contested South China Sea. The US picked the wrong target at playing this trick on China's People's Daily. Behind this misjudgment is Washington's anxiety and arrogance, and it is the true expression of its hegemonic nature. And I think, the US has to put up, i.e. bare its fangs with some seriousness, or shut up, because China is incrementally moving the dial. The United States has warned China on Wednesday against taking additional provocative actions following an impending international court ruling on the South China Sea. I like this. I accomplished the first oceanic crossing with a solar plane. Today, Bertrand Piccard is crossing the Atlantic. I like this photograph that Politico posted, which is of Donald Trump, and I just put a caption, recaptioned it, exit stage left. Kim's push for North Korea weapons that work is a headline. B-52 bombers pounding the Islamic State at a faster pace, General says. Cold War era B-52 bombers, best known for flying nuclear-armed patrols and carpet bombing in Vietnam, have dropped almost 700 munitions on Islamic State targets since beginning operations in April over territory the group claims, according to the US Air Force's Chief of Staff. And then finally, for political reflections, Pakistan's Sufi singer Amjad Sabri gunned down in Karachi, and it's just appalling, isn't it? These singers are singing love for God. It's amazing. Professional investors call this event risk. Everyone else might just see it as the new normal. And indeed, if you look at price movements that we've seen in the markets, they've been simply off the charts. Germany pays a record low 30-year borrowing cost at the Bund auction, sold 820 million euros at Bund's 0.65%. It's an amazing sleight of hand, isn't it? You can borrow at zero. Let's move on to the currency markets, because we're expecting plenty of action there, aren't we? The euro, 113.30. Dollar index, 93.44. Remember, 93 is a very important level. Japanese yen, 104.53. The pound, 147.58. Got over 148 earlier this morning. Swissy, 0.9592. Sorry, I've already said that. Australian dollar, 0.7533. That's popped through 75. We've got to keep an eye on the Aussie and the Canadian. I'll come back to those in a minute. Indian rupee 67.325. South Korean won 11.51.45. The real, which you remember not too long ago was above 4, is currently at 337.71. But I don't think we've had any sort of resolution in the Brazilian political context. The Egyptian pound 8.87. And the rand 14.56. That's had a very strong few sessions, and we'll come to that. I'm going to put up a one-year chart of sterling against the dollar and just say this is going to be interesting, isn't it? Let's see what happens. I'm not convinced that even if they stay in, that you're going to get much of a rally. I think, pop up above 150 might turn out to be quite a good place to sell it again. January 11th, I said that one of my conviction trades for 2016 is to buy the yen against just about everything. It was then at 117.30, and I said I think it can get to 105 and even 95 this year, and I think that's still possible. I'll put up a one-year chart of dollar yen, 104.51. Dollar Canada, let's take a look at that. That's an interesting chart, 127.90, but I'm of the view that oil looks very toppy, and that we should see a retracement in the Canadian back above 130. Let's move on now to gold. Gold getting a bit of a bid here, 12.69. It's currently trading inversely with sterling, as it were, because the thinking is that if Brexit happens, gold will be bid up to about 1,400 probably. Javier Blas, Vital CEO, says fall in US oil output is stopping. Not sure if it will start to recover. So we're seeing a recovery in US production as the price went over 50. OPEC says oil revenue plunged by $438 billion to a 10-year low last year. I said this in January. I said there's no Hail Mary pass coming for the commodity producers. Crude oil, let me put up a 6-month chart. Getting bid up early in the morning, as it does. Let's see if we can hold on to these gains by the end of the day. I doubt it. Sub-Saharan Africa, Equatorial Guinea's president has promoted his first son to the country's vice president. This is CCTV Africa. Would you believe it? And following in the footsteps of President Dos Santos, there is an AU delegation in Burundi at the moment trying to broker a peace. I like this photograph that Willie Nyamitwe posted. He is the press officer for the president. DRC presidential hopeful Moishi Katumbi was sentenced in absentia to 3 years in prison and fined $1 million by a local court. So, not only has he left the country, if he turns up, he's going to be promptly arrested. They were seeking a 5-year prison sentence for him. Political tensions are high in Congo. The government has said that it is unlikely it will be able to hold the election on time due to budgetary and logistical constraints. Kabila has been in power since 2001 and is barred by constitutional term limits from standing again. But opponents have accused him of plotting to delay the vote in order to cling to power. 6th of June, I wrote, birthday boy President Kabila is constitutionally barred from running for a third term, and Moishi Katumbi has set out his stall now and is a formidable adversary, which he is. And on that date, I said, in fact, the numbers were building, and Katumbi must have been thinking this might just turn into a tsunami. President Kabila, however, outwitted Moishi Katumbi by removing him from the street. I was saying how the street has become a big bone of contention in Africa, and the Congo entirely. It might well prove a cleverly administered technical knockout, and you lob on this prosecution, and you've got a very interesting scenario. One of the Guptas, a fellow called A.J. Gupta, said, "I'm not a lobbyist, I'm not a state capturer. As far as I'm concerned, I'm a friend only," he said. Capture is when you are taking any advantage of anything. The Economist, I like this headline, and it's really about the ANC. And essentially, Gupta's captured Zuma, Zuma captured the ANC, and that's why he's probably going to ride out even a very poor result in these recent elections that are coming up. The Rand firmed to 0.4%, 14.67. It's firmer still. It's climbed to a 7-week high and has gained more than 4% just this week. I'll put up a 6-month chart. It looks very toppy, the Rand, to me. Egyptian EGX30 up 2.15% in 2016. Naira devaluation closes gap with black market rate. It's plunged 30% since it was allowed to float freely to 286. Black market rate has strengthened from 370 to 340. Spread still around 55 Naira. The Nigerian all-share surged to levels not seen since August 2015, first time above 30,000, up 2.4% yesterday. Don't have to be a rocket scientist to work out what's going on here. The stock market was waiting and waiting for that devaluation. People are moving in. Ghana's unadjusted gross domestic product growth rose to 4.9% year-on-year in the first quarter of 2016. Ghana's stock exchange composite index is down 10.91%. The impact of Mozambique's hidden debt service payments is a report by Transparency International. Go to Rich Wrap-Ups, click on the link, saying that debt service payments are now coming due in large amounts that had not previously been programmed. The government's economic policy is being thrown into disarray in the fiscal, monetary and real sectors. Then it's an interesting report describing the knock-on effects. Inflation in particular is now running away out of control. 4th of June 2012, different era. Maputo was on the cusp of a boom. I visited, I called it Maputo Boom Town. Greetings from the Serena Polana. I can confirm that Maputo is a land of wonderful and flavoursome tiger prawns. Architecture is also deliciously retro. By the way, the Polana was built in 1922 and the flavor is fabulously Riviera and very swanky. It is less than 4 hours by plane from Nairobi and surely set to be the most in of in things and places to visit. Now, I was saying then Mozambique has popped large onto the global radar because of gas reserves that have been discovered offshore and in the deep sea. Let me give you a photograph of Maputo taken from the sea. Yields on the $727 million bond, which is due in 2023, rose 69 basis points to 17.8%. That's 17.8% in dollars. It is the highest yielding sovereign dollar bond after Venezuela. We say Africa is here now in Costa Rica, says the Reverend Alberto Barrios Gutierrez. Interesting article in NPR about immigrants out of Africa now going to Latin America. President Dos Santos warns oil fall leaves Angola short of foreign reserves. Angola is running short of foreign reserves to pay for imports because its national oil firm has not contributed to state coffers since January. Remittances from Sonangol, which is now run by the president's daughter, Isabel, represented 60% of total government revenues, but the firm halted payments after the price of oil fell, Dos Santos said on Wednesday. Our country lives upon imports, practically. Imports for food, for raw materials, to national manufacturers, for industry, agriculture, construction, for payments to expats and foreign workers, Dos Santos said. Above all, we need to make other goods to export besides the oil, and that is the strategic task. August 2015, as you well know, I said the end is nigh for crude oil and oil producers from Caracas to Luanda, from Riyadh to Abuja. Oil economies are going to contract, currencies which have already collapsed are going to be routed, and Greek-style austerity will be the order of the day. The meltdown is coming. Then January, the beginning of the year, so there's no Hail Mary pass coming for the commodity producers. Pending hearing and determination, conservatory orders do issue barring the respondents, Central Bank of Kenya and the KDIC, from transferring, assigning, disposing of, dissipating or alienating any of the assets of Imperial Bank, that they've been blocked. Court also ordered CBK and KDIC not to implement the joint agreement announced on Tuesday, effectively stopping NIC Bank from making payments to depositors taking over Imperial Bank branches and staff as stated in the deal with NIC. This act by the respondents is an enhancement of the exclusion and transfer process commenced by them, which process ultimately culminates in the liquidation of the bank, the director said in an affidavit filed in court. List of shareholders who are backing the CBK in court includes Imperial Bank Chairman Al-Nashir Poppet, 14%, Hanif Somji, 10%, Jinit Shah, 12.5%, Anwar Haji, 14%. NIC Bank was to resume disbursements to distraught depositors capped at 1.5 million shillings each, subject to the High Court lifting a freeze on payments. Acting KDIC boss Mohammed Ahmed Mohammed, who is Imperial Bank's receiver manager, responded to the latest suit, saying the bank's directors were aware of the grand heist at the bank but did nothing to address the situation. The forensic audit has since revealed that the said whistleblowing emails were in March 2012 brought to the attention of inter alia the following directors: Abdul Jan Muhammad Al-Nashir Poppet and Anwar Haji. Facilitating and abetting tax evasion using fictitious accounts, directors using client deposits to engage in drug trafficking. CBK inspectors have been given huge kickbacks, including and not limited to unsecured loans to keep mum. Financial results have been doctored to impress but hide this, reads the informer's letter. And really, I wrote this piece about Chase Bank, which I called The Story of the Three Wise Monkeys, Mizaru, Kikazaru, and Iwazaru, but it applies to Imperial Bank's defense as well, shareholders. The entire tale that has been spun took me back to the story of the three wise monkeys. Together they embody the proverbial principle: see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil. The three monkeys are Mizaru, covering his eyes, who sees no evil; Kikazaru, covering his ears, who hears no evil; and Iwazaru covering his mouth who speaks no evil. You have to ask yourself, what is the duty of a board? Was there a functioning board at Chase Bank or even at Imperial Bank, or just a Mizaru, a Kikizaru, and an Iwazaru? Kenya shilling 101.20, Nairobi all share down 0.37% this year, Nairobi NSE 20 down 7.17% this year, and that's at 22nd January 2016 lows. Interesting piece, African Bismag about Africa's largest wind farm set to power Kenya. This is Lake Turkana Wind Power, largest single wind power project in Africa, largest single private investment in Kenya's history, being developed in Marsabit County, 12 kilometers east of Lake Turkana, the biggest permanent desert lake in the world, approximately 530 kilometers from Nairobi. The scorching sun is unrelenting, but the blowing winds are strong, and they become even stronger after sunset. The sandy soils do not support much in the way of vegetation. Nothing grows here except for thorny acacia trees, which are few and far between. In this barren and harsh environment stands the village of Sarima, hemmed in by a wire mesh fence. It is home to 760 families cobbled together in traditional dwellings known as manyatas, which are made of twigs and other materials. Villagers derive their livelihood from livestock, so when the project came calling, villagers had great expectations for jobs. I deferred my studies because I had inadequate fees to continue with. I came back to Sarima in January 2015, looking for a job so that I could get money to go back to school, but I still haven't got a job up to now. The speed and strength of the winds here place them among the best for power generation in the world. The region has a maximum mean annual speed of 8.47 meters a second. The project is set to generate up to 310 megawatts of power when it comes online towards the end of 2017. But there are lots of issues around land tenure. The journalist asked me about it, and I cited the problem at Kinangop, which was another wind power project. I said, I think that we find increasingly in so many different parts of our economy that a lot of international investors haven't really done their due diligence, or they've not been able to measure this kind of risk. And I'm talking about the failure to engage with the local community. I'll put up a photograph from Lake Turkana with its beautiful turquoise waters. It is the world's 4th largest salt lake. Once again, thank you kindly for stopping by.